I'm a Tesla guy, so you got to
come on. You gotta hear the engine.
What's that?
About the new battery sticking out?
I got one in the parking lot here. We got one. So I want to talk a little bit about me as a case study. Is because I'm a veterinarian, but sometimes I've been called a cross-dresser because I spend most of my time as a businessman, but using my training as a veterinarian to create products and services for veterinarians. And I would like you to, first of all, take a look at this, and what do you see? What is that to you? What are you seeing?
A window with boats outside.
Exactly. So you're seeing an open window, and you're looking through, and you see boats. Matisse might, the actual picture is by Matisse, and he called it the open window. So you saw it. Some people look out and say, I see plants, or I see doors. But what I want you to be able to do today is, it's very casual, just look through the window and see things from an entrepreneur's standpoint. Someone who started as a University of Delaware student, not a very good one I may add, and how through the relationship starting here in Delaware and my mentors here in Delaware allowed me to kind of cash out later in life. So there are three words that I just want you to keep in the back of your mind, because I think these are the only takeaway things that I really want you to think about as entrepreneurs, is fear, envy, and empathy. And I'll explain what I'm talking about, how it's relevant to you. So maybe this is a free lunch, but really in reality, you have to look at a guy that was here during the dark ages. I graduated in 1972, but I think I remember being here. I learned a lot when I was here, actually. I learned that milk comes from cows. Holsteins make white milk and Guernseys make chocolate milk. I think that was my takeaway from that. But most importantly, this was a very nurturing environment. It will never be this good again from a standpoint of nurturing. You guys just came out of a meeting where someone actually cared to help you to go on to the next step. And when you go on to away from Delaware, I don't think it's quite as kind. But it's important that the relationships that you have here, if I'm an example, will be lifelong relationships that will help you for in perpetuity. So when I was here, I graduated from high school, and I was not a very good student. I was an average student and really lost. But when I got here to Delaware, I hooked up with a couple of people, and I think that they found me, I didn't find them. And those people are still important in my life. And I think there are similar programs now, like Accelerate, which I think we're going to talk about a little bit later, which are ways for average guys, average people. I had a learning disability. When I got here, I wasn't even sure that I was going to be able to read the material. I kind of overcame that, as you'll see. But I hooked up with two major mentors. A fellow named Tom Maddox, who was a veterinarian. I was graduated from the Ag School. And he allowed me to get involved in a research paper. And does anybody know what Diphtheria immitis is? Anybody from next? Heartworm disease in dogs. So maybe nobody cares about that, but from entrepreneurs' standpoint, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry for Heart Guard, Sentinel, and products that are sold for preventing heartworm disease in dogs. So it's an important thing. But I was the et al, and I think that anytime you can be the other person in the room, you have to be in it to win it. You got to be there. So this is the time to hook on to really smart people. The other person that I was involved with was a professor named Paul Samowitz, who I think was in here the other night, or going to be in. He told me a very important thing, which was to be as large as you can be. So I was an average student, so I'm not going to be able to do things through the front door. I got to find my own way to be important. Now, important doesn't mean to be in somebody's face all the time. It just means that you're a resource. The resource that when somebody wants something to be done, when they ask you to do it, they know it's going to be done with excellence. He taught me to try harder when I was an average student. He got me into the degree with distinction program. I assume there's some sort of honors program still around here, now that the dinosaurs are gone. That became important because it took an average guy and said, you can be better. And Professor Samowitz did that for me, and it stuck with me for the rest of my career. But the best thinking is done, as we all know, at the deer park. And it's the most important thing that you can do there is imagine. You can imagine. Okay? No one can imagine for you. You have to do your own imagining. So entrepreneurs have to be great imaginers. They have to imagine what they want. You have to do all three things, though, and I think that's what this kind of group is supposed to do. Is you first imagine it at the deer park, and then maybe you come here as a group with interdiscipline. All the different 7 colleges come in one building, and you innovate. But most importantly, the thing that separates maybe me from other entrepreneurs that haven't been, financially successful is they couldn't execute. You have to be able to execute. Now, execute doesn't mean you have to go bring it to market and milk the cows. It just means that you are able to execute your plan. That means have a personality that allows you to get in front of some VCs, venture capitalists, that decide that they want to take a risk. So you have to be able to execute your innovation. And if you don't execute your innovation, then it's just a good idea. It's an interesting idea. I think that's something you'll learn here. So I'm sure, since you're business students, most of you business students, that you know that to innovate, there's only really a couple of ways, and I'm sure this is a broad strokes. I'm sure there are more sophisticated answers to this, but either you can create a new market, or you can build a better mousetrap. Those are the 2 things. And generally, you do both, because you have to reinvent yourself, reinvent your product or service, whatever you're doing, every quarter in a public setting, or every day in a practical setting. If flat growth equals death in the world of business, small business at least, there is no love in the bank. So you either have to speak to the shareholders or speak to your bank account. So every day is reinventing yourself. So apparently I've done good because I was able to get into Penn as a student because of Dr. Semowitz and because of Dr. Maddox. They helped me to get in, and that is important. It's another important thing to learn today. So, most veterinarians have DVM degrees. I have a VMD degree. You know what that means? What the difference is between a VMD and a DVM? So you know what a DVM is, Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, right? And a VMD degree? VMD degree is a very mixed up doctor. The only school that gives that is Penn. So you start to think about egos. I mean, why does Penn give VMD? Well, it's either Latin or Greek, but it's ego. And so one of the things we're going to talk about is decreasing ego, and therefore decreasing envy, and it will serve you better in life to have a low envy life. So I went from Delaware, where I learned my ABCs, to vet school, to a place called the Animal Medical Center. So at the Animal Medical Center is the world's largest animal hospital with a lot of egos. I had my first look at entrepreneurial business. I'll talk about CardioPet in a moment. But CardioPet was my first time that I was the cross-dresser, where I was a veterinarian by day and a businessman by night. During that period of time, I kept my day job. My day job was to be a young administrator at the world's largest animal hospital, dealing with 75 people older than me, basically, because I was the chief resident running doctors that were much older. But things that I learned here at Delaware about not creating envy, not making anybody mad at you, having empathy, understanding the people around you, and not being scared of what you feel is right, helped me on my very first level. So of course I was broke because I was making $12,800 a year, but we started this company called CardioPet. CardioPet was started when I was a resident in cardiology. We did electrocardiograms on all animals, but mostly dogs, cats, and horses. And the way you do an electrocardiogram is you hook up these electrodes, black over white, white, red over green, newspaper, Christmas tree is the only way I can remember things. And then from that, we were able to send electrocardiograms, which are important in diagnosis and treatment of cardiac problems. We were able to take those electrocardiograms and trans-telephonically. It sounds silly to you now, but when we were doing this, there were no motors. We had a telephone, a regular telephone, and you put it into a box, and it sent things over the telephone wires, and at the other end there was a receiving box where you put the telephone. And out came a paper strip, an electrocardiogram. Well, today it sounds ridiculous, but it was more ridiculous then. It was more ridiculous, but it was mine. It was my innovation. It was my, our group. I don't want to say just me, but we thought it wasn't silly, and we didn't listen to anybody else. So, our job was to provide cardiac consultation within 1 hour, 24 hours a day, 24/7 business. That's a really tough business to be in. To be able to turn something around in 1 hour over the telephone, old technology, not internet technology, and to be able to speak to a veterinarian and give him a diagnosis and a treatment. It was pretty innovative for its time. And it was a razor blade strategic plan. We gave away the transmitter, and we only charge you for the razor blade, for the diagnosis and therapy. So we took a $50 sending device and had a $2,000 receiving device. But that receiving device could be anywhere. In fact, it could be 24/7. We had one in Europe, we had one in Australia, so we could create this 24/7 service. And so we started the business, which is a disruptive innovation. There was no market to this. We had to create the market. We had to convince veterinarians, first of all, they wanted to do electrocardiograms, and then they wanted our service, and they wanted to pay for that service. So we charged them $10 to do this. That's all it costs, $10 to do it. Now, I was supposed to be doing this at night as a cardiology resident, and I was going to read them and get the answers back to them. And we gave away 20 transmitters. Within 6 months, we had 2,000 transmitters. And I had borrowed the capitalization of $666 to buy the first set of transmitters with one receiving device. I borrowed it for $666 because that was my rent. So I didn't pay my rent. I did this instead. Now there were 3 other guys who also put their $667 in. And then we plundered my office. We took staplers and pencils and we used the operator. In those days, telephones were all answered by operator. The operator would not answer the phone in the Animal Medical Center. It would answer a CardioPet, and we paid the operator $1 for every phone call that she or he got. So entrepreneurs do whatever they got to do. Within 6 months, I got a call up to my boss's office, and I was just a resident. And I started to shake. I was going up to his office. I figured I'm getting fired because they found out I was stealing the staples. So I get up to his office, and in the room is the chairman of the board of the Animal Medical Center. The guy's name was Paul Cameron. He was the president of Purelator Corporation. Purelator was the predecessor for FedEx. Okay, he was an entrepreneur. And he asked me what I've been doing. I told him what I'm doing. He said, well, we would like to be involved in this, or you'll get fired, basically. So he said, how much did you put in? I said, I put in $666. He says, I'll give you back your $666, and we want 1/3 of the company, and you keep 2/3 of the company. What I didn't realize that he meant was $666,000. So in a matter of 6 months, we did our first venture capital deal. This was a not-for-profit. The reason why I'm so specific about this is the University of Delaware, of course, is a large institution that probably has a hard time doing innovative things without speaking to 100 people and taking 2 years to do it. So fear, envy, things are, you have to be able to control. I'm going to go over that in detail in a minute. So the Animal Medical Center, and with any entrepreneurial idea, you have to be able to have exit strategy. So you get in, but it's not any fun until you get out, right? You don't make any money in most entrepreneurial settings until you have an exit strategy, either through a private funding or through public. In the case of CardioPet, I'll get back to India. One of the coolest days of my life is when we went public in 1984. Again, it sounds like a zillion years ago, but you know, this is the same stage. I was 34 years old when I went public, and we had some exit strategies, so I wound up making some money at that point. But the problem is that I couldn't go back to my day job anymore because I created so much envy in the building. I mean, everybody else wanted to make some money too, right? And that was not the plan. The plan is, I'm going to make some money, and the Animal Medical Center made some money. They made it so that I could not work there anymore. So I learned, I was the first, envy, realize how powerful envy is, and you have to be able to control that. And I'll go over that in a moment, how we do that. So in '87, I retired. I had every time, any entrepreneur here will tell you, or any entrepreneur has done something in their life, you do a big deal, the following day you want to vomit. Because either you got out too soon, you got out too late, you got no place to go the following day, I mean, in certain things. And the hard part for me has always been, is I'm all in. Entrepreneurs have to be all in at some point, whatever they do, but they should have a plan for the next deal, for the next thing, or you get bored immediately. And so, I was too young to retire. I want to this is something from talking about CardioPet. Stupid ideas are generally the most successful. If everybody else thinks it's stupid and you think it's not, you think they're just not good thinkers. This is an example of that, what an entrepreneur will do. This is in Central Park, it's the New York Times. They're writing an article about me or us. And it reads, as the temperature climbed as it got hot in the mid-90s, and in New York City's carriage horses were ordered off the streets, two perspiring veterinarians in white coats hooked up an 11-year-old horse named Casanova to a payphone at the corner of 5th Avenue and 59th Street. Now, I have to call my parents and say, I'm in Central Park, I have a horse hooked up to an electrocardiogram, and we're going to send this over a telephone. Explain to them why I need money. If this isn't a stupid idea, I've never heard that. So, and then the spin is, the horse is in great shape. This is a future racehorse. So the marketing begins. There's no market. We haven't created a market yet, but we got the New York Times to get an article. So that allowed us to raise more money. So that stupid article, or the stupid thing of me, hooking up a horse to a payphone, is ridiculous, except that it worked. It was out of the box. So of course that deal went by, and then I'm sitting home, I put a help wanted veterinary doctor in me immediately, or will succumb to boredom. And so the next thing I had to do, the next thing we did was, because I was so bored, was a sustaining innovation, making things that we know how to do. My day job's a veterinarian, making animal hospitals more efficient, making them more profitable. And we did that by rolling up, consolidating the animal hospitals, defining what an animal hospital would be a good acquisition, deciding what that is, making them more efficient, consolidating them, putting 2 animal hospitals in one building, or having intuitively animal hospitals want to be far apart so you don't cannibalize the market that you're in. I always thought that was a stupid idea, but nobody else did. So when you get down to operations, you have to do 2 things. You have to have your same store sales, in my case animal hospitals, improve each year, both revenue and bottom line earnings. And since that's so slow, how much eventually that's going to flatten out, you have to be able to acquire animal hospitals. So you have to have some sort of strategy. So we try to find undervalued animal hospitals. We built some ourselves. our sustaining innovation there was to buy hospitals very close to each other, and the cannibalization theory is just not true. Markets grow when you have good things together. We usually see two carpet stores very close to each other, or McDonald's right next to Burger King. Usually like that because that's where people will go for those kind of services. Is traffic somehow creates traffic. And we also provided exit strategy for older veterinarians. Guys like me, who are just veterinarians, have to be able to get out at some point. So we gave them exit strategy. Now again, this was started 15, 20 years ago, is there was no way to do that. Okay, and now we invented that way, or kind of started that way. So in one case, our thought process was to get enough animal hospitals together and then either acquire more or get acquired. And that's what I did. So we own 17 animal hospitals, and those 17 animal hospitals, it became wise for me to sell to a public company so that the valuation for a public company is going to be much higher than it is for a private company, and then I got out again. I sold the animal hospital. So Delaware to Penn to the Animal Medical Center, to learning about affiliated animal health, to roll up at the animal hospitals. My wife said, "I love you forever, but not for lunch," basically. So it was time for me to do something else. So at this point, you know, I made significant enough money, I guess, to be able to do things other than just make money. And so we started this. We had affiliated animal health, which was the consolidation roll-up leg. And then I decided that another way to make money, because entrepreneurs want to do that, was to get to the unaffiliated animal health. Unaffiliated business model takes veterinarians who don't have a rat's ass chance of owning their own animal hospital. It's usually inner city kids or people, women, for example. So 75% of the veterinarians graduating from veterinary school now are women. What percent are owners of animal hospitals? So of the 100 animal hospitals on Long Island, what percent of them are owned by women? Less than 10%. Okay. African Americans make up 10–15% in Delaware, even greater, of the population. What percent of African Americans own animal hospitals? You can count them on one hand. How's that? How's that possible? It's just, it is. So it's not a level playing field for women or for others. So we decided that we were going to take people like that, very smart people, people that we know, and we're going to be the money, and they're going to be the brains and the sweat. But the only way to prevent envy in a situation like that, when your partner wants to kill you, which always happens very frequently in entrepreneurial business, you make it actually equal. You make the partnership equal. Now you think that would be easy to make it equal, but it's very hard to define what's equal. If I'm the money guy and someone else is the worker, how could that ever be equal? So what we would do is we put the money in and have very clear criteria how to get rid of me. How to get rid of me is pay me back the money in very good terms over whatever time it takes, 5 years, 10 years, and at some cap rate, so that if we lent $1 million, when you get to $1.2 million in revenue, we'll disappear. And we want our money back, and we want a percentage of profits. But the hardest thing, and I may not have made that clear, is to get rid of your money is the best day of your life, when you no longer have to answer to the money, and that you are in control of your own destiny. Well, that's not easy to do in many business models. So you create an equal risk, equal gain partnership without any money or opportunity. And it's worked for me now a bunch of times, where those are the most rewarding business deals we've ever done. When you have equal risk, and if it's good for me and not so good for you, or better for you than it is for me, it creates envy, and usually it's not successful. So I'm telling you to chase the dream, not the money, because the money will come if you have a dream. If you have a dream that's reasonable, practical. The VC guys need you Okay, there's a shortage of good ideas and the ideas that are executable. That's never going to be, in this day and age, that's not going to be your problem. I just think you need to take an accounting course. Now, business people, not you do that. But the other entrepreneurs like me are people from the ag school or from wherever school other than the business school. There's no more important course than you'll ever take is accounting for the non-accounting. You've got to know the difference between a P&L and a balance sheet. You have to prevent people from taking advantage of you because of lack of education. Your mentors will help you. In the business school, you have a wealth of mentors in the world of business. You have to create those relationships now. One of the best relationships I ever had was a fellow from Harvard, which I never went to, but I got over my fear and I basically knocked on his door and I said, I have a good idea. I'm about to sell my company, go public or sell my public company, and I want to know if it's a good idea. He happened to be, the guy's name is Samuel L. Hayes. He's a business mecca. He told me the smartest thing, and he only said, we paid him like $10,000 to have this discussion. And the discussion at the end was, should I sell my business or not? And his answer was, it's either right or it's not. Can I get some more detail on that? No, it's either right or it's not. And it's the most brilliant thing I've ever heard. I mean, you got us this far. The entrepreneurs got you this far. Is it right or is it not? It will well up in you and you'll know. But you better have an accounting class and some mentors. Right now is the easiest time ever to raise money because the VCs have no place to put that money. They can't put it in the bank. You're not going to make any money in the bank. There's very few you're going to be able to debt finance any of your businesses. You're not going to go to the bank and say, could I have a loan? That ain't happening anymore. Unless you have assets that are 3x your request, it's not going to happen. So, I mean, I don't know anything about the internet business or anything like that, but I'm really talking about there are lots of innovations that if you have an innovation, you'll be able to find money. But you have to have some sort of reality testing. So I ask myself all the time is, what is it you would really like to do in life? You could just start over again and say, my fantasy is to what? My fantasy was to become a race car driver. You're looking at me, you're saying, how is that possible? Well, it wasn't. So there's a certain reality test, and you have to be able to see over the dashboard of life. And in your venture, you can't get involved. I mean, I couldn't get involved in the fashion industry. I don't have any idea what's going on. I can think I'd like to be in the fashion industry, but I don't know anything about it. So, you don't have to be stupid about it. But I know, and fear was the other thing. If you're fearful of your business, then you're not going to be successful. There are only two things that will prevent your your success. Maybe that's it. Envy and fear. So this was a drawing that the other thing that Samuel Hayes gave me. He sat down and he noodled this piece of paper. And he said, you're a really bright guy, you got lots of good intentions. If you want to be happy, which in this case make money, you got to control two things. You have to control your fear of failure or other people being fearful in the project, like the investors. Somehow you have to be able to control fear. And the other thing is envy. If I make you envious of me, you're never going to be successful. People are going to want to knock you off. The more successful you are, the more unlikely the people are going to like you and help you. Equal risk, equal gain. You have to be able to control fear and envy. I'm going to go back to this in a second. The other thing is mastering empathy. So what is it? When I go into a business room now or I go into a room with my children, it doesn't make any difference. I've learned to become a really good listener. I just listen. You can feel what's going on in a room. And you can, if it's a business project, I go in there and I usually say, hello, my name is Bob Cohen. What brings us here today? And quiet. Usually no one wants to start. And I said, well, why don't you start? I always let the other side start because I want to hear what they want, what they want to tell me, But then if I just take the pause and I listen long enough where there's absolute quiet in the room, they're going to tell you everything. Everything. Because it makes people uneasy to be in a quiet room and just be good listeners. They can't, so they talk and they talk and they talk. And that's how business deals are, you know, at least in my strategy over the years, is to be a very good listener. It's a very hard thing to learn, just to be empathetic and listen and feel what other people feel. So this is not me, but it's a great line. I couldn't stand to let things just happen. Put your money in the bank, collect interest, you could do. It's just not what entrepreneurs do. If you're a real entrepreneur, you feel that. And you should fail a couple of times. If you fail, if you don't fail, that means you weren't all in. You didn't put it all on the table. And you couldn't be that big if you didn't put it all on the table, one way or the other, emotionally or financially. Don't listen to anybody. If it's either right or it's not. It's a good idea or it's not. But you have to be able to execute it. You have to innovate it, imagine it, innovate it, and execute it. So what do VCs want to do? Ideas are interesting. There's a lot of good ideas. But they want to invest in the person that is able to execute that innovation. Execute it in some way. Doesn't mean bring it to market, but it means getting it to a point off the paper into something else. Always try to hook up with people that are smarter than you. I made a career out of it. And so I look for synergistic relationships in people. I look for people that know more about accounting or more about writing business plans or how to operate. You know, a CFO is probably the most important in a growing business, to have a good CFO, somebody who understands the numbers, and leave the ego at the door. Because if you have ego in a room, it's going to end badly. So I've always been good at, since I didn't think I was that particularly smart, by having people that are really smart, and that's served me well over the years. Well, everybody says carpe diem, don't they? But what that means to me is go to the meeting that you think is a waste of time. CardioPet started because no one else wanted to go to the meeting with the guys who were talking about this technology of hooking up electrodes to dogs and trans-telephonic electrocardiogram. The chief cardiologist did not want to go. My boss didn't want to go. Nobody wanted to go. I wanted to go because I wanted to hear about it. And because I was in the room and I placed myself in that room, it all happened. And that was a $25 million public issue. So that was a good one. You never give up. When it really looks tough and you're about to fail, you're going to be fine. So how do you get money and be happy? Work your ass off. Take the pause, listen, be empathetic. Learn to use empathy as a tool to make your uniqueness. You be the people that listen, absorb the people around you, leave the ego at the door, fight the fear of failure. If you're not using your rent check, there's some other currency that's equally as dangerous. So when I acquire practices at this point, and other things along the way, but when we look at things right now, I go into an animal hospital, or somebody who works with me goes into an animal hospital, and we tell them to look up, and what are they looking for? They're looking to see if the light bulbs are on. So if there's a burnt out light bulb, fluorescent fixture that's not working, what does that mean? It means that no one looked up. It means that that's not well run. So is that a bad thing? No, that's a good thing, because we can make that animal hospital better. We're going to get those light bulbs on. It's just theoretically, philosophically, is that if the light bulbs are out, we can fix that. Sometimes you go into an animal hospital and they're very good at what they do. Then I don't want to acquire that. I don't know how to fix that. And then the other thing is looking down. Is the place clean? Well, we can make it cleaner. So if it's immaculate, I probably can't make it more immaculate, right? So it's less interesting to me if they have their act together. other pearls of wisdom. Sir?
If you could, feel free to keep going for a few more minutes, and then we're going to have a little bit of time.
Okay.
Just because people are going to have to.
We're wrapping up. Never go to a meeting in your private airplane if you're raising money. Don't bring anybody to your house because of envy. Don't drive the Tesla. And keep your day job. That's my day job. Get to, that's, sometimes my day job is putting in pacemakers, which allows me to do other things. So this is the most important part of being successful. At the end, if you can count your grandkids and they live 10 minutes from you, that's really what success is all about. Which university gets more people in the veterinary school? The answer is University of Delaware. Okay, that means that you're undervalued. This fact that you place more students in veterinary school, and just as an example, I only know about that college, it means that you're underselling yourself. This is a tremendous school. So did you say ice cream? Sometimes you look up, sometimes you look down, sometimes you look across the street. Your creamery, student-run operation, it's a vertically integrated operation. You make the milk, you do whatever to make ice cream, then you sell it. Okay. The only thing that prevents that from being branded and having 1,000 stores across the country is maybe the university is a little fearful, and it's a low envy business because everybody wants ice cream and no one would not want you to be successful. So I asked the question, why aren't the student entrepreneurs, or maybe you are, is rolling that thing up, scaling it up, making it bigger. It's one of the few businesses that I know about that will make money here for you guys in the university. So last night I came up with these brilliant ideas. This is the marketing scheme for that, but university trained cows I thought was important. And this is the kid, that's the board. So thank you very much for having me. Any questions? Did you have a question before they didn't answer, or did you answer? I guess I answered everything. Thank you.
Okay, so you said mentors came to you. At some point, did you seek out other people? Like, how did you?
Well, I was kind of fail out of school, so I had to find somebody to help me. And, I went to first to Paul Semowitz, who was a classic university professor. I mean, here at Delaware, and that his door was open. He said, "Come on down, tell me what your problem is." I said, "Well, I don't think I can. I'm not going to pass my courses because I can't read." He said, "Okay, so what's your problem?" I said, "Well, I can't read." He said, "No, we can fix that problem. So what's the other problem?" I'm scared. I said, "Okay, we can fix that problem." And he just didn't do that. He opened the doors and made sure that I was in the right program to get it done, and, hook up with the right medical staff or whatever it happened to be at the time. And it worked for me. But it's only because he was an empathetic guy. He felt what I was feeling. And I know from my experience here at Delaware, that happens. I don't know if it happens in a big school like the business school, but I can tell you it happens all day long in the ag school. Where, but you got to hook up. You got to go out there and find that person and to say, and to go and knock on the door. And that's what entrepreneurs do. They knock on doors and they get used to being rejected. But it's your responsibility to take care of yourself, especially when you get out of here. Sir.
What is your work-life balance like if you have your day job as a veterinarian and also an entrepreneurial job as acquiring other businesses?
So when I was in my 20s and 30s, there was no balance of life. It was, I did everything all the time because those are the decades of your life where there's not a lot of stuff going on other than that. I have a great wife. I met my wife here. So I'm married 45 years to the same woman. which, by the way, Tom Maddox said to me, she's good, you should marry her. Okay. So he did. So at some point you learn to balance your life, and your kids growing up is really important. But entrepreneurs work 24/7. It's just if you're not going to do that. I mean, in most cases, I mean, maybe there's somebody, you know, there's a Bill Gates out here. I'm sure he worked 24/7 too. It's just there's no other way. It's not rational. It's an irrational thing to do. Do things that other people don't do. Imagine things that no one else has imagined. Make the better mousetrap. Most people can't do that. But if you're an entrepreneur, do that and then be able to sell it. Makes you unique. Sure.
I'm trying to think the best way of asking this, but
Oh, just ask it.
when you're facing, when you're working with other people who are very fearful of change and resistant to change, is there something that you've experienced that's a good way of kind of shifting?
Empathy. Empathy. What is it that why are they fearful? If you can wear it, what they're fearful of, is since it's irrational, I'm sure, that their fear is irrational. It's a good thing, like it's a burning building, you know, we should get out of the building. But if it's just irrational fear, if you own it, you'll be able to figure out the answer to that. So in the case of venture capital, you go in there and you're gonna hear from them, if you listen, what they're fearful of in this deal, but they're betting on you. So they want to be talked out of it. If you're in a partnership with somebody who's fearful, that person becomes a bean counter, and it will be nothing other than that. You have to be surrounded by people that are willing to believe in you. And if they don't, then they can't be there. It's not that you have to leave, it's like they can't be there. You have to, you know, this is not to make friends, this is to make money. I mean, in the case of business. I can tell you the same thing about fear and empathy and envy. That's true in your personal life too. If someone wants to knock you off because they're envious of you, you're never going to have a good relationship with them. And if you're afraid to ask her out on the first date, you're never going to go out on the first date. Right? You got to fight the fear. Don't drive up in the Ferrari. That's important. I'm just saying.